we don't come to you guys in a way that you guys can't understand, as it seemed to be the case as we just fall started here a second ago. So forgive us, those of you guys for watching live. Those of you guys who are just tuning in, thanks for joining us. We're going to give you guys a Kīlauea volcano update today on January 18th, 2021. This is our 29th day of the eruption. And there hasn't been a whole lot of new media and information from the USGS, but we're gonna show you guys what we have kind of taken from their webcams here. So this first view is a zoom into the webcam view, the S1 cam that's been put up by the USGS, and it's looking at this west vent over here. Let's see if I can circle it. This whole big mound over here. All this thing is a west vent, and lava's been coming out of this area over here and pouring down this channel into the lava lake, which has this perched edge here and kind of over here. But what's happened is that the side of this west vent, a little bit more to the east, has opened up, and it's been putting lava out too. And it's been pouring lava first into that trench, kind of filling it up, and then finding a way to spill over straight into the pond as well. And so it seems like it might actually be currently robbing the lava that was coming out from over here. And this seems to be winding that down, although there's still definitely lava coming out and oozing. You can still see some motion over here on this video. So let me play it here and animate it for you guys of how it looked, back on, this is January 13th. Overnight it's a little washed out, but you can kind of see, generally speaking, where the action actually is. You can definitely see the margin of the perch pond over here on the sides. And there's our moving, gushing, low fountaining that's making this channel that's pouring in here. And so now we're going to watch over here, this area over here. And so there was actually a 16-minute outbreak. You can see there's a little splotch that came out over here. And that happened early on too. You can kind of see it goes a little more. See a couple of times it kind of starts and stops. And then here, as we get into the 17th and the 18th, which we're still on the 16th here, then you'll see that this section that was kind of opening up already, you can kind of see that maybe the gas was coming out there or the lava was working its way through there. But overnight, last night, so once it gets dark here, you'll see that this fountain still seems to be going. It doesn't seem like there's any action, but suddenly you see this whole new source over here, and it's pouring lava out, and you can see it starts pouring into the lava channel somewhere right in there. So that's the sequence that we have. That's kind of zoomed into it. Let me see if I can play it for you guys a little bit faster here. And have you kind of see, you can't see that detail as much overnight, but in the daytime, on these daytime shots, you can definitely see the lava radiating out. Kind of crust, you saw kind of one big splosh out, a second one right in there. You can see that vent is actually open. And when we look at the thermal camera, we'll see there's actually a one hole and a second hole, and the lava comes out of one hole, and the second one, the upper hole kind of vents a lot of the gas, and it's building another secondary little cone, kind of similar to this one, that's forming kind of back in here. So you can see that second source here, the lava pouring in this way, was coming in over this way, and as that comes in, it seems like this trickle over here seems to be dying out here at the very end of the video. So let's put that one away and let's show you guys just a little bit more zoomed out here. And so here's what it looks like in the more zoomed out. So as far as the signals on the volcano, we are seeing a little bit more pressure. It's not a huge amount of pressure, but it is a slow rising pressure. And as we kind of anticipated, for it to keep putting out that amount of lava, you would expect to see a corresponding rise in amount of gas emissions as well. And so the last gas emissions were measured, were 4 days ago now, but they were measured a little bit higher, at somewhere around 47 or 4,800 tons per day. And so there you can see that second event over here pouring out and how it flows down all the way to here. It's coming down around this island in this direction over here and over this way over here. So by this point in the video, you see there's actually more lava and more flow coming there than it is over here. This is the one that's kind of dying off, and it's going to be hard to see what that is framing. So I can actually can grab it here and drag it back and forth a little bit. You can see that there's a phase somewhere in here where we have a piece of crust that's formed. And you really don't see a whole lot of movement, but the lava is probably coming underneath here in this channel. But it's slow enough that we formed a big piece of crust in the way of it, and we'll look at that in a thermal here shortly. But you can actually see how much lava is coming in from the side over here and pouring in both directions. So there's a little bit of a ridge that's formed here from the edge of the perched channel, but the lava is filling in on both sides of it now, coming from this side of the eastern side of the western vent over here. And so I wanted to kind of just jump back in time a little bit and kind of show you guys what it looked like back on December 27th. So you guys can, this is USGS video, Hawaiian Volcano Observatory from the 27th, and let's see if I can get it a little bigger and better for you guys here. So you can see at that time we had, I mean, the lava level was a lot lower at this point, right? We actually had several different points that lava was coming out of, right, and pouring down, kind of similar to how it looks now. We actually had that middle channel as well, and we still had that western channel, which is the one that maybe burst open, right? And so everything is a lot different now because everything is buried under a much broader amount of lava. As the activity kind of died down to Strombolian, that means the intermittent kind of just puffing little bits of lava, to the more sustained, continuous low fountaining that we're seeing more recently. So I just wanted to kind of put that as the context, and then show this one, which is the most recent video we have from about a week ago, of what that activity looked like. Let's zoom that in for you guys too, as much as I can. So there's our low fountaining activity compared to before, right? So we don't have, it's all from one center vent kind of gushing down that channel, and it wasn't really open anywhere on the sides. It seemed like all that side activity had shut off for the most part, until we started seeing that intermittent opening as reported by the USGS. First a little bit of glow, and then a little bit of a lava stream, and then another lava stream, and another lava stream, and now it seems like it's full on, an easier path out than this slightly higher vent, perhaps. Maybe that's all there is to it. Right, so that's the most recent video we have there. And that phase, it seems like, is changing now that we have this new opening over here. So let me show you guys the thermal image here, and play this back here kind of slow, just kind of show you guys a few things. There's our main flow right in there. You can see lava still coming this direction both ways around the island. We're having a little bit of crustal overturning still happening. This is back on the 11th, right? And you kind of see that some of these areas are not overturning quite as much. We have our northern vent over here. We have our western vent is starting to grow as we start to see the pressure in the volcano starting to build. This is something we looked at in our past updates. There is that first little splosh over of lava from this side western vent, which is somewhere over here, and it flows off in this direction from this perspective on a thermal camera, right? Where that's actually the north vent, and north would be that way. So you can see that thing growing up there. And you can clearly see the source of radiation of the flow of lava that comes around. As we get into the 16th here, in the last 3 days, you can kind of see we still have some flows coming over around the backside of the island, but much of this backside is pretty intact, not overturning anymore. You do see kind of leak out from the edges, and it's interesting to see how these things move around over time. They kind of pop up in one area and then kind of spread sideways. And you start looking closely at these things. Something that's been reported by the USGS in previous lava lakes as well. And so that's kind of the overall big picture. But the second thing I wanted to point out that's really interesting and kind of not been reported on that I've seen by the USGS so far is that we did speculate that the lava might pick up that northern vent and actually lift it up and make another little island. And it's hard to see that, but if I move this back and forth kind of quickly, here at the end, you can kind of see that the whole lava lake is rising up, right? Like lava is filling from below, and even that crust, even that perched crust, all this stuff is actually lifting up all together, including this little North Island. So it actually seems like it may have been detached. It's now attached to this little peninsula of crust, and it's moving upwards with it as well. It kind of got picked up and it's riding that wave. And so let me see if I can show you guys this in a little bit more detail. And I did try want to show you guys this here. So there it is, kind of zoomed in the northern vent. I'm just toggling it back and forth over the course of a week, from a week ago to today, a week ago. You kind of see how it's rocking upwards there, right, against the crater wall. And you can kind of see clearly that this whole back crust over here is also rising up, as well as this is a northern vent right here. It's this kind of U-shaped Pac-Man from this direction kind of thing, right? Because the lava was coming out of a hole over here, and it was splashing over on the side of the hill over here on this side, and then going downhill and feeding up that lava lake on that side. And so it kind of left a horseshoe shape, and that's what you see there. So if I take this back and forth and keep the eye on that, you can see it rises and falls, forward and back, forward, and see, I'm trying to kind of see the whole thing rising up. So not only is lava flowing in that area where you can see it red on the surface, it's going underneath that crust everywhere and causing it to lift it up, right? Either that or it's filling this space, and the lava here is moving over that way and pushing it over and causing it to lift up. In any case, like, it seems like that whole back crust is also still rising, even if it is lower than this area over here, because it still seems like it's downhill and it's cooling and it's a little bit lower over there. Right, so and it's just interesting to see that, and and to look at these pattern of where lava is popping up along the edge as well. That's maybe part of that process, right? It's lifting the whole crust, and that's the seam along the edge of the crater. It can pop up. Now, it's doing that mostly on this side. It doesn't seem to be doing that on the western side so much, but it's really interesting to look at right here. I kind of want to make sure everyone sees this north vent here moving, getting lifted up, right? I got attached to the crust of that's the hard part above the liquid lava. This is actually the solid lava, and as the whole thing is being picked up, it's risen up, and it doesn't look like the crust over here will overturn anymore. So I don't know if it'll be its own island, but it's definitely attached, and it's now above the surface, barely a little bit over here. So that's really interesting to see. So one more thing in the thermal, and that's kind of just to give you guys a zoomed in view here of that second vent over here opening up, right? So you can kind of see this is the growth of that west vent as the lava rate went up, and it's growing, and a couple of spillovers coming from the side over here that kind of fill in this spot, right? There's one, there's the big one. And so if I kind of back this up and go a little more slowly, you can kind of see this over here is the main west vent. This is an upper hole that puts out gas, and this is a lower hole that puts out the lava. And the lava, you can see, is pouring down into this trench, but it breached back over the perched pond and went back into the pond. In this direction, it's kind of towards the towards the east. This is the west vent. And then here at the end of the video, you see it finds another path that's closer that goes straight over this way. And this one starts to die off. But you can kind of see a radiation pattern first that comes out from here early on, and then it comes out from here later on, and then it starts to come out from here. That's an interesting thing to see as I go back and forth in this video. And so there's the early part, radiating from here, all through here, radiating there. And then the middle part comes with the initial outbreak. It's just happening right there. So there's that next one. And if we fast forward to some of these frames, you actually can see here's the second one that's going to take over the pathway from this one. You can kind of see there at the end. Not quite clear what's going on there. It seems like it might be petering out here towards the end here, early this afternoon. So we'll take a look at the live camera here shortly. And but first, I want to show you guys the deformation data and show you guys that in a short term over the last day, we've come up maybe half a microradian or so. So a general upwards trend. Let's change my color here. General upwards trend but with a little cycle up and down upon it, right? This might be the thing that you could be related to a little bit gassier, a little bit less gassy, and the cycles and pulses of that fluid, different kinds of lava coming through. And if you look on a longer term for the past week, you see basically the same pattern mirrored. General upward trend. In this case, it's about 4 microradians, so it's something that's starting to get noticeable there. And if you're looking at a longer term, it is definitely noticeable beyond that 4 microradians. But you also see these patterns of a little bit faster, a little slower, and up and down, and up and down. And this was that earthquake that just shook the ground, but the ground went back to close to where it was, and then up and down, and up and down, and up and down, and up and down. And it seems like it's kind of doing that, but the general pattern is still up. Right, and that's really the main thing. If you look back at the last month here, let's look back at the last month and make it a little bit bigger for you guys. And our scale here is massive, so 0 microradians, 10, 20, 30, those are the tick marks. And we have 1 month at a time here on the bottom of the graph. And so we initially had a big drop off as the ground sagged as eruption began, and then the west vent turned over here on the 26th, became the more active one as the north vent became submerged. Then we had a little bit of a back pressure adjustment, and then it kind of was going on this trend. Then we see this big, it looked like possibly a deflation-inflation cycle, but it may be similar to that. It was a moving of the denser magma underground out of the way, more out of the way, so that there was an easier path for the fresher magma to come out or something like that. And so we've seen really in the last 8 days now a clear upward trend that it's not nearly as much as we dropped down, but it is getting to be a thing where if it can sustain that, then the eruption will be long lasting, and we will see the gas levels stay as high as they have been in the last 10-year lava lake. That's kind of what we've been looking at the entire time here, and it looked like it was going down. And this might be the clearest sign from this point on that this eruption might go on longer than I had thought it might, right? Than I expected. And whoever else is following us, or whoever else has their own ideas of what might happen next, right? But this is the interesting signal here that's kind of breaking the pattern of what was happening before, because this is explainable, and this is explainable with the vent right over here resumes a pattern, and then right here that big kind of inflation, usually denser stuff moving out of the way of less dense stuff, which means gassier, right? Then maybe you have more gassy lava coming out. You see sustained low fountaining. You see now a second vent open up that's easier for the lava to get out, and enough pressure to actually put all of that together. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that the gas levels remain around what they are, 5,000, a little bit less than that, tons per day, rather than go down until we see this turn over again and start heading back down, which might be, it's an extension essentially, right? Is what this does. This is a signal of an extension of the eruption right there. So, okay, there are all these Kīlauea Summit webcams, and so this is the S1 cam. This is the one that I started off showing you guys, a zoomed in version of that little image right there. And so you'll see there's a lot more of this image over here with the crust now turning over, and the north vents in there as well. But one thing that you can see sometimes is there's more wind in this position, right? So the camera isn't as good to analyze for this fine detailed zoomed in version, because it kind of bounces around a little bit. So there's other angles for everyone to check out. If you guys can't get enough, then you can go and see everything from all the different angles as visible on the USGS site there. As far as our update, the only new information that's really worth updating you guys that are following avidly here and have seen updates before: 202 meters depth, 663 feet deep, and stagnant over its eastern half. That's the same, although we now have shown you guys over the thermal that eastern half, even the stagnant, it's still rising, kind of inflating upwards as it's too elevated. They report here 4,700 tons per day. That's the official USGS number from January 14th. And that falls in that range of the pre-2018 lava lake of 3,000 to 6,500 tons per day. So that's basically what you see there. And if I jump over to the graphs here, you can kind of see this in graph form, although it's not quite updated because we're now over 200 these tick marks over here is 200 meters, 180 meters, so 20 meters per bar. And so you see from the eruption, when a crater was skinny at the bottom, it was filling in pretty quickly, but ever since it's gotten wider and broader and the eruption rate kind of sagged down, that was kind of previous to the 10th right there. You saw that kind of slow down. And so it'll be interesting to see here if we see any kind of increase in this rate, or, you know, if it just kind of catches up and it's barely visible because of that wider area. Considering it has to kind of break out from that inner perched area and fill in all that trench all around it on all the sides still. So in any case, we should be above that 200 mark here at the end. So we should become kind of headed up, something like that, right? Maybe not quite that high, but up nonetheless. And the gas values here, you can see this is that 4700 value on the 14th red in there. And so we still had high up, downwards, and kind of a long drawn out. It looked like I might have been going down, but we're seeing a little bit of a rise here. And so it could also be that we have a cycle of up, down, up, down, up, down happening, you know, and maybe a longer cycle of up, down, and up, down, and up. And so it might be generally still going down, but you might see, that's kind of the thing to see now, is whether this continues sustained or flat, or if it starts coming down again. So that is essentially the monitoring signals here. If we look at the last 24-hour automatic time lapse on USGS, it actually is at this point in time pretty good, because this started off less than 24 hours ago. So you can actually at this point see this vent opening up right in there and then pouring out. You can see the two different areas that's taken over here, and you can kind of see the point over here dying off, right? So if I go back up to the still image up here, this most recent thermal still image, you can see that there's still a bit of a path for lava to move through over here. But there's kind of a big cooler spot over here, and the lava is kind of pouring in this way. And going this way as well, from the side of the vent over here. So that's the fascinating thing, and let me see if I can reload it and have it show us anything different. So I still see a more active plunge source shifted over to the east slightly, right, from where it used to be over here. There still looks like there's still lava coming in, right, but I can't really quite see it as well there. So let me see if I have my last time lapse up here. Let me see if I get it, if I have it. All right, so let me open this one more time for you guys. So you can see here at the end that we still have a trickle of lava coming out. And that's where that bigger crust is over there. So pull it back to over here. And so there's our trickle of lava there and there. And there's some of our harder spots, our bigger piece of crust. And lava coming over the edge here, over the edge here, and over the edge over here as well. Right, so we're going to wrap up the signals here, and this is kind of just recapping what we mentioned last time. That same west vent is the one that was described as an ephemeral eastern lava flow that was active for 16 minutes on 13th, 5 days ago. So it was noteworthy at that point. And you can kind of see how it's at a lower elevation than the main vent, and so that's kind of what we're looking at, is that same spot reactivating. Earthquake-wise, over the last week here, there have been some bigger earthquakes underneath the Pahala area especially, but it's all still nothing that directly relates to what we see with eruption, no affecting eruptions that we could tell anywhere up here in the summit. So still a few small adjustments a few days ago, but really, if I adjust this, if I go to the settings here and I go back to, let's go to the last 1 day, then there's not a whole lot on there. Right. So I have a 3.1 that happened today. That was pretty shallow, northwest of Na'alehu. So I'm sure it was felt by residents nearby there. That one is much shallower than the typical deep one you see elsewhere, right? So, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything apart from the ground above. At some point, it's going to have to adjust to the ground that's moving underneath it as well. So if the ground underneath it's moving enough, at some point it's not surprising to see a little bit of an adjustment above it as well. So just one earthquake by itself, not alarming. If it were to be more than that, we'd have to keep an eye on that. But as it is, that's the only one on there that's not more than 30 kilometers down. And there's a 2.6 going back all the way to over here as well. That's 9 kilometers down. Still not the same as this one over here, which is 0.4 kilometers above sea level, close to the surface. All right, so there is still VOG coming out. The VOG has still been lingering around a lot of the island, depending on the winds. Although there's at least some parts of the island now are getting some flash flood warnings, and so there might be some water washing out the VOG. Might be a welcome relief for some people, but you can kind of see that there's some red areas in here kind of close, and it swings into the saddle, and it swings around south, and you can see there's VOG kind of lingering all the way, kind of all parts of the island, except perhaps Lower Puna over there. And so kind of want to back up here and show you guys that if you look at the distribution across the state, there are times where some of the stuff is reaching that southern edge of Maui over there. So if anyone's watching from Maui and smelling fog, then that there could be some that's making its way over there as well. We have seen some reports that if you look at the Hawaii air quality site, that the data is not loading. And so if I zoom in here, there's just no information coming here. And so the easiest way around this, besides the purple arrow, which I'll show you guys here shortly, is if you guys go over here to the top left where it says current air quality, and you click on SO2 advisory on there, then you can kind of see there's some errors. You're having null air quality on here, but it actually is still giving us values as SO2, and it's still giving us times that the values were taken. It's not able to figure out what colors that 0.0002 should relate to good, or that 0.015 should relate to moderate. So that's what I can't figure out at this point in time, is what those numbers relate to right there. But they are popping up, at least on an incremental basis. It looks like the last measurement at 9:30 is not very good, but that's why it's good to have citizens backing up any of these government services, right? So here we have Purple Air, which is a citizen weather monitor data set. And you can kind of see that the Kona and South Kona areas are having some yellows and oranges on their PM 2.5 readings over there, although nothing else is picking up across the island. So that is what we have, and let me just make sure that USGS are probably still following the federal holiday of Martin Luther King Jr. today, being celebrated. And they're monitoring anyone's watching from the West Coast. And there is a tectonic earthquake swarm ongoing at Mount Hood. No signs of volcanic activity. 100 earthquakes south of the summit and location where swarms commonly occur. Maximum magnitude to 2.7. As well, there are other earthquakes going on around the Pacific Rim as well. But that's kind of just what the USGS is up to. Is not a whole lot of information since then. And so that's why we are coming to you guys from Hawaii Tracker, hawaiitracker.com, to get you guys questions and see where that discussion leads us. But that's what we have for you guys as far as the data today.
All right, so we do have some questions here. Just hop right into them. So we're looking at the pressure increasing at the summit. Does that pressure indicate or suggest that there could be a new path opened up, like around the summit?
Well, I mean, there is a slightly new path, but that's a vent that's we saw open early on that was active for a long time, and it just seemed like and it's essentially what I've described before. The lava comes up in blades, right? They come up as almost like 2D structures. They have, there might be a meter or 2 meters thick, 1 or 2 yards, something like that, wide, and the magma is moving through them, but it comes up on the blade. It actually, where it hits the surface, that's where it splits off into different fingers. And so we saw the northern vent We saw that middle vent, we saw the western vent, and we saw upper and lower vents of the western and the middle vents, actually, in fact. Right, so and actually that upper western vent had 3 different fingers of its own. So it's just a matter of which little finger. So, you know, it is a different pathway, but it's only up in this upper section right here. That main pathway, that same blade, hasn't changed since December 20th.
All right. So this is the increase that you're talking about. Did that happen? This is, you know, both questions from YouTube. Did that happen in the last 72 hours, or when did that change occur? You guys pulled up the tilt meter, huh?
Right, yeah. So yeah, the tilt meter, let's pull up the tilt meter. I'll do the tilt meter for you guys here. I'll put it back on the screen for you. All right, so we can't see far back enough looking at just the past week because it's taken, essentially, it's been something like 8 days now. But I'll zoom into it here and show you guys the big sharp decrease occurred on the evening of the 6th going on to the 7th. And that's kind of that depressurization pulse, which kind of accompanies, that's why we think of it as a magma. It's denser, displacing magma that's less dense, and then switching places, and then it's out of the way, and now the fresh stuff can come up. That happens right around the 10th, right? You know, right, maybe the evening of the 9th, right in there is where it actually turns around, where it starts coming back up. And so mostly it's from from January 10th. There have been some, like I said, little downs and ups and downs and ups and downs and ups on the way, but that's essentially when it turns around is on the 10th.
So we've been getting a ton of rain, at least down in, you know, by Fisher 8 today. I bet you guys have been as well. So generally speaking, what impacts does the rain have upon, like, the volcano, the lava lake, anything along those lines, and an ongoing eruption?
Yes.
Because if you remember, there was that one paper that was put out last year that was suggesting 2018 eruption was caused by rainwater, which, you know, we discounted, USGS questioned, but, you know, what does the rain do?
I mean, it's not something that I want to, you know, want it to sound like we're just discounting it as such, because the rain does have an effect on the strength of rocks, right? You know, in fact, you know, that was my specialization for my master's degree was structural geology, and that's a big part of it there, right? Is, you know, understanding the different stress states of different parts of the rock and how it might occur, like at different scales, vary over different scales, and water does play an effect, right? But when you're talking about the actual magnitude of pressure change due to water, it's still dwarfed by the forces of magma that are coming around. So it could be another one of these, if it's ready to go, and that could be the thing that does it, absolutely. But it by itself can't cause the eruption to happen. It's not like without that happening, the eruption wasn't going to happen. It was going to happen some other way. Something else was going to be what set it off, and it might have happened a couple of days later, perhaps. But it still was going to happen. It was inevitable at that point in time, right? So
Right.
that's one effect as far as, like, you know, how the water affected 2018 or not, right? So I mean, as far as what's happening now, I mean, there's just so much heat and so much gas. Like, there's almost this own weather pattern coming out of there. You know, there's more water being shot out of the vent than is flying by. You know, or I don't know what the ratio is exactly, but there's a lot of water getting shot out of there as well. A lot of steam.
Right.
And if you were near the lava, you know, that kind of, you know, it's hard to imagine because there's a lot of wind in a lot of the videos that USGS puts out. But you can kind of imagine you'd hear kind of a crackling and the rumbling as, you know, like the gas is just jetting out of the vent and throwing the lava out, right? And like a little bit of a sloshing kind of thing as lava is plunging into the vent, and maybe the hardened lava plates scraping on each other. And then sometimes you do hear it kind of like a sizzle on a hardened crust. You know, maybe that's the best we could describe. Like, you know, like if the water can, if the, you know, let's say it was hailing, or it was a huge, like right now it was actually thundering not long ago. So if you had giant thunderstorm water droplets falling down and some actually make it down there, they might hit and they would just sizzle like on a frying pan, and that's all you'd get, right? Even if it was red lava, right. That's all you'd get.
I think the the thing that it impacts more of the rain is like the instrumentation, the monitoring, because you can see like the tilt meters start to get a little wild when it starts raining a bunch. It starts to look like an inflationary signal.
Yeah,
But that's really the only thing I can think of.
yes, it's definitely true that can happen. Yeah, and that's a lot easier to. I mean, it's hard. It's harder when a volcano is less active to tell that signal apart from some other more subtle volcano signal. When a volcano is erupting like it is now, the signals are pretty clear that that's what's happening, and then the rain doesn't really even register here. Also, right? Like on a scale of this month tilt, right? But maybe in a scale of this day tilt, maybe you could see something, within a range of 10th of microradian or more coming up. On a tilt plot over here, right? In this two-day plot, maybe something like this lasts a little bit, maybe. But we're talking about 10th of a microradian as opposed to some giant amount of tilt. That's something you'd see on a month plot, right? Where a scale is just 10 microradians, and we're going down 5 and up 8 and up another 5, and over here we're going down 45. It's just a whole different scale of things.
So going a little bit, changing up a little bit, coming down to the Lower East Rift Zone and Fissure 8, have you been know anything about ground deformation? Corey is asking on Facebook. Ground deformation around Fissure 8, Lower East Rifts, anything like that?
Well, I might need to lead on you too, Dan, here, but I mean, what we've heard is that there has been some adjustment very locally. We haven't seen any changes on any of the tilt meters as far as anything to do with magma or anything else. But we have heard about the fact that the ground has been settling, and that's something you expect as lava cools and contracts, that it changes shapes. And of course, if it's bubbly or not bubbly in certain areas, it's going to change shapes in different places at different amounts and in different ways. And it might seem a little funky. That's kind of the best that I could do. As far as the specifics of what's changing where, I mean, maybe you being much closer to Fissure 8, Kīlauea can report for us.
Yeah, I went and looked at a few cracks recently and haven't seen anything. You can tell when the dirt's been disturbed and stuff like that, and the cracks that accumulate on the road after the eruption. And I haven't seen anything to suggest that there's something that we're missing in that regard.
Right.
The only thing that I have heard is that the road down to Poiki, when they were staking it out for the survey, it moved on them when they staked it. But that was across that's the one thing that's weird there, is they actually crossed the rift zone and the fissure line from 2018. So I don't know how expected that is, but it makes more sense to me that place moved. But I haven't seen or heard anything Fissure 8 moving, inflating, deflating, at least visibly, or reports of it from INSAR or anything along those lines.
Right.
So I am not sure.
Right. Yeah.
I know that we can expect in the next few days people to start asking about the smell, because it always seems to happen when we get caked with a cloud layer and rain and pushes the pressure up, so the gas stays low to the ground. Maybe get a little bit of south wind action coming in.
Right.
And yeah, just probably going to get that stink.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the INSAR, because that's one thing we haven't mentioned, and that we don't have an automated source of INSAR right now that's available to us publicly. We can generate the INSAR, but it's hard to do that and do all these broadcasts. It's pretty intensive. So that'd be one thing we could add if we had a little bit more funding, when Dane brings it up here at the end here, if you guys want to. That's the kind of thing that if we could expand, we definitely would get someone to help us process that and report that to you guys.
Right.
As it is, it can take a few more questions. There is one.
Yeah.
There is one right here that I can kind of pull up. It's a little bit of an older tweet here from the USGS from January 12th. But someone's asking about the height of the western vent over the lava lake. Yeah.
We actually have that same question here too.
Yeah, and so it's right here, 40 meters, 131 feet. That was above the lake surface on the 12th. And so if the lava lake has come up, it might be a little bit, I don't know, perhaps 36 meters, something like that. So still probably about over 100 feet still. over that vent, something like that. Yeah, is the top of it, right? So the top of the fountain of that fountain is more or less the same, although that eastern fountain is slightly lower than that. What's coming up is that lava lake. So, all right, Danny, which one you got next?
Right. So, I do have one that was. I'm like, okay, good luck on that one. I'm gonna have to go back and find it. Let's do a different one first. So, how long, generally speaking, this is more of a meta question. How long, generally speaking, would it take for Kīlauea to get to the size of the Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa?
Well, so it's all
How
about,
many millions of years we talking?
yeah, I mean, it's all about that eruption rate, right? You know, but I mean, I think you could give it a million years, less than a million years. You know,
Less than a million.
some, by some estimates, it's in the order of, a couple hundred, few hundred, 300, 500. I've seen, the range of that as far as how long it took the volcano to rise off the sea floor and break the surface. Right, it's something like that. So, that's like a fraction of a million years, 0.2 to 0.3 to 0.5, maybe 0.3 is I'll have to go back and check on the number. So that was a rate for, of course, getting to Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa sizes to take longer than that, right? It's just like filling in that hole from the bottom up. It takes longer to build a mountain taller because you got to build the base of it out to support the top, right? So, so yeah, a million years is, seems like ballpark reasonable. Some people might say 500,000 years, but it's all about that long-term rate, right? How much is how easy the magma might come up and for how long. Because if it comes out constantly for 500,000 years, that might be enough too.
All right, so this is the question I was looking for from Andrew on YouTube. Going to be kind of technical, but I tried looking it up and I just didn't find the answer probably in the way that he was looking for it. So he's curious about the density of lava, and he's asking about comparisons to other liquids. So he's saying like a gallon of water weighs 8.3 pounds, a gallon of gasoline 6.3 pounds, diesel 7 pounds. Like, where would lava, if you were to have a gallon of lava in like a jug, where would that fit in to that?
All right, so if you want a technical question, I can give you a technical answer, right? So, this is a huge part of the science, and it's just a matter of the terminology that they actually use, right? So, I mean, as far as it being lava implies it being the actual rock that spewed out of the volcano, and that rock has gas in it, and there's gas trapped in it, and that's where really it gets really messy, because when you're talking about lava itself, it all depends on the gas content, how much it weighs, because gas is super light, and of course, if it gets really frothy, so it can kind of range. It can range from, like 1.5 grams per cubic centimeter to, without any gas, to 3 grams per cubic centimeter, right? That's the whole range of it, right? Or kilograms per cubic meter, however you're gonna. I know you guys are in pounds per gallon. I have to convert it over there, but so that's when I talk about this, dense rock equivalent. So when you actually are talking about trying to compare one eruption from one place, whether it's in Hawaii to Italy or to, wherever, South America or, Japan, you want to convert your lava measurement over to a dense rock equivalent. So that you can then compare how much lava was there actually besides the gas, right? Because the lava then can be stickier, and that's what you want to kind of measure. And so you actually do see a range of where the actual bulk rock of something that forms a granite, somewhere like Krakatoa, might have slightly lower density, 2.7 grams per cubic centimeter, compared to Hawaiian basalt might be around 3 or 2.9 or somewhere in that range like that. That's kind of the range of most rocks in the world, right? But when it comes down to it, the range of gas and lava will go all the way from 1.5 to it just skews everything. It just blows everything, all the scales out of the water. So that's why it's so tricky, when it comes down to them actually trying to measure, like imagine you're sitting there on the edge of the crater like the USGS scientist, and you're trying to look through the rangefinder and look at that lava coming out and trying to measure how much lava is actually coming out. you have to you just can't necessarily do that with just the binoculars. You have to also be measuring the gas, figure out like, well, you just can't tell. You've tried to watch the gas cloud, and the gas just comes out and billows and billows and billows more, and it's like superheated fluid, right? It just kind of billows, I don't know, endlessly upwards, and it kind of expands. It's kind of hard to quantify how much gas is, how dense it is when it's coming out of that hole, right? So really hard to get the exact numbers.
Yeah, Ryan passed me a reference to the gallon question. How much does a gallon weigh? Right,
Okay.
and posted previously. He's saying these guys did some calculations. They're saying at 2,500 kilograms per meter or cubic meter, it would be roughly, was this 25 pounds? And if you make it more dense at 3,100 kilograms per cubic meter, then it would be what, roughly 26 pounds for that gallon of lava. But yeah, much more detailed. Thanks for the explanation on that one.
Yeah, so
Kind of an interesting side quest.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Let's see here. So you already answered that one. That one. I'm gonna go back into chat and see if there's anything new in here, because otherwise that's all I got for the questions.
All right, sounds great. Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys for
Looks like it. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining. We're brought to you by HawaiiTracker.com. Best way to be able to support this channel, support this type of content, is to share this video. We don't have a advertising revenue to be able to promote it, so you're sharing it really helps us out. Second way to help us is to be able to go on HawaiiTracker.com, make an account there, become a user, and maybe make a donation to us. So that the support there goes directly to being able to put in the time to be able to research this type of content. The best way to be able to help us, though, is the monthly supporter, right? So we can be able to maintain during times of quiet and times of eruption. And we do have some supporters to, thank today. Suke really help us out, and Deepa M and Lisa L. Appreciate you guys, and appreciate everybody that tuned in for the live. And thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Dane. All right, so yeah, thank you guys. We'll be back to you guys on Wednesday. We will try to bring you guys a little bit more information with some more context, but we're gonna maybe just play it by ear that day, since there's other things maybe happening that day as well. So, but we can be back to you guys on Wednesday, and then Friday this week will be our plan, and at least tell you guys what's going on with the volcano. So mahalo, thank you guys for joining. For Dane DuPont, I'm Philip Ong. Aloha.